listening to the Mindful Biz podcast. I'm Alison Morgan, business coach at Relauncher. Hi everyone, welcome to the Mindful Biz podcast episode from quarantine. So we're mixing it up this week. As you know, I usually have a guest on and we chat, and I thought this week I would come on and chat by myself. So this is the second time I've been in lockdown, which is pretty fortunate. I think so many people have been in lockdown many times, but being where I am in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, this is our second time, and I'm finding this second time harder. Could be because the weather's not great, and also, I don't know, I've just got a bit of cabin fever. It's actually fallen in school holidays, as you already know, and usually what happens in school holidays is that's my time to switch off for one of those weeks. So for the way I work, it's full on. Like I've got two businesses, as you know, Relauncher and Sticky Studio, and, you know, every day is pretty busy, and I'm really focused, so I get through a lot of work. So by the time it comes to school holidays, usually I take one of those weeks off and, you know, really spend time with the family and the boys, and it's so good, and then I come back all refreshed, and it hasn't happened this time, as you know, everyone is in the same situation. But I personally find, you know, working from home, that I just love to get out of the home on school holidays. So anyhow, we're here. So I don't know if you can hear all these emails coming through as I record, so please disregard, and sorry about that. So anyway, this episode, I thought what I would do is talk about increasing your online presence, because this is something that we are in control of, and it really is something that you should be doing consistently as much as you can. So if we rewind back to when I started my business, which was 11 years ago, Relauncher actually was an online store back then. And, you know, the website went live, and then I'm like, right, where are all the visitors? And then I realized, right, I really need to start creating an online presence so that people can find me. So 11 years ago, when business, you know, when I first started in those first couple of years, it was really quiet and really slow. That's pretty much what I did nearly all day, you know, every work day. And then, you know, right through to now, I'm still doing it on a daily basis. So what you do find is that as you become established, it does become easier, and you don't have to do it as often. And once you've created that foundation, it really does allow people to find you from an online perspective. So from a marketing perspective, you really want to get all the cogs turning, meaning that you've got a good online presence, being organic, as well as people referring, and then people, you know, finding you offline as well. So for the sake of the conversation today, we're going to talk about increasing your online presence. The strategies I'm going to take you through today are all free, so you can do them yourself. You can obviously also outsource them, but if you want to do it yourself, then you can. So number one is we always need to create a really great brand and website before we really do anything going ahead, because we use the brand, obviously, if that becomes the first touch point when people, you know, refer or hear about you. And then the website is where we need to drive traffic to either make a purchase or make an inquiry. So even if you've got like a physical presence, you know, like a studio or a shop or a restaurant or anything like that, you do need to have a website that people can go through for further information. So we do, in terms of the branding, I mean, look, that's a whole nother podcast, and it's quite an in-depth process, which we do through my other business, Sticky Studio. But just to give you a top line insight into that, you know, when you're creating a brand, some people bypass that and go straight to creating a website. And in some cases that can end up costing you more money because you haven't thought about the basis of the brand first. And in other cases, people, come back and they revisit it and they refresh their brand, years on, which is something that I actually did 3 years into the business. So from a Sticky Studio point of view, we would do branding guidelines, which becomes the foundation and the anchor of the brand. And the great thing about having that anchor is that when you then start creating other content, being, your website or merchandise or newsletters or flyers or social media, you can refer back to the guidelines, so you've got that one beautiful brand look and feel and tone of voice throughout all the touch points, which makes a huge difference for people as they journey through your business. So the brand is the first thing that you need to create, and then when that's all done, you then would move on to either packaging if that's your business, or a website. Now, the website is so important to get this right, both from a user experience, being, the click-throughs and the way they guide through your business, as well as it being visually appealing. Because we guide so much marketing back to the website. So if that's not looking right, and if it doesn't make sense, and if it's not clear and concise, people are going to bounce, which means that all this content marketing that we're about to talk today becomes a waste of your time. So you've got to get the website right. So user experience is the navigation. Now, the navigation is that top line across. So it might be home, about, services, blog, contact. So it's those elements across the top and also in your footer. And the idea is that everything really wants to be 1 or 2 clicks away. So you want to have clear inquiry buttons, buy now buttons, easily understand your services and how they work with you or the product that you're selling. So that's all going to be right, okay? So when that's live, you then can go into the back end to start working on your SEO. So just to clarify, that branding and that website, if you ever need any help, we can help you, either through business coaching or through Sticky Studio. So a lot of the clients that I work with actually use both businesses, but you don't have to. But the offers, the services are there if you need help with your brand and your website to get that right for conversions. The next area really is SEO. So SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and for a lot of people, it's a completely different language and completely overwhelming. So if you fall into that scenario, don't even worry, that's fine. But what you will find naturally, and I know I receive this myself, I receive so many emails every week, literally from spammers saying to me that my SEO isn't very good and did I want them to fix it or did I want a free report? Now, the answer really is just hit delete on those emails because it's spam. And yes, they can help you, but just don't do it. It's good. It'll cost you money and it's not necessarily the type of help that you need. So depending on the platform that your website is built on, depends on how your SEO is done in the back end. So when I say platform, that means whether your website is built on Squarespace or Shopify or Wix or WordPress or whatever you've used. But essentially in the back end of your website, you'll have an SEO'd feature, all right? So what you need to do is understand what your ideal customer or client would be searching on Google to find you. And once you've identified that, they're the keywords and key phrases that you use throughout the back end of your website. So generally speaking, there should be a tutorial that you can follow to do this yourself for your particular website platform. And you want to be updating your homepage meta tag. That is really important, because that really becomes the key elements for your business. And then you go also into the back end of all your pages and your blogs and update your alt tags for your images, and all of that is going to help with SEO. So again, that's something that we can do for you through Sticky Studio, or you can do research and do that yourself. But it's really important that you're threading the SEO with content that your audience would be searching to find you. Okay, otherwise it's too random. So that's website SEO. Another element to consider is doing SEO via third-party websites. So that would be, if you've got a physical location, make sure that you've got a Google My Business profile. Most people would already have that, but a lot of people have not filled that out that well for SEO. So even if you've got it and you think that it's working well for you, just still go in and refresh it, re-look at everything and make sure it's listed in a way that if people are searching for your type of business, that it's going to come up. Make sure you've got recent photos on there, a recent description, and obviously a link through to your website. Reviews really work, because quite often, if a stranger stumbles across your business online, it's the reviews that helps dictate whether they'll reach out or make a purchase. So, that could be reviews on Google My Business, it could be reviews on LinkedIn, Facebook, all those platforms. So, make sure that you're getting fairly regular reviews, because that absolutely helps. And then also things like creating a podcast or you featuring on someone else's podcast. And what some people do if they've got a podcast is reach out to a different podcast and say, do you want to do a podcast swap? You can do that for a podcast, you can do that for a blog article, you can even do that with products, and then potentially share that on social media. So have a think about what will work for your business, but at the end of the day, you want to be threading links that are going to lead from other people's websites to your website. Okay, so always keep that in mind. Now, it's really important that the content that you're creating is relevant or it's a waste of time for you. Ideally, you've got between 1 and 3 pillars of conversations happening in your business, or areas to filter, or pillars of your business to filter people through to. So that could be, for example, for me, it would be Sticky Studio, it would be business coaching from Relauncher, it would be podcast, another one would be products that I love and share from other small businesses, and then it's also lifestyle. So already there's 5 pillars of topics of conversation. I wouldn't talk about lifestyle so much on my website, and I don't talk about other products on my website. So that takes me back down to three topics that I would talk about on my website, which is Sticky Studio, business coaching, business topics, and podcast. So as you just heard, I mentioned a couple of other topics, but I would integrate those additional topics into my social media content. So just always make sure that your content is relevant. Identify, the business pillars that you have, write that list, because then it's going to help you work out what content you create and where, and then you can add some lifestyle pillars, which helps humanize your brand, because that's really important that you humanize your brand. So as you know, we need to use social media to build trust and rapport. And look, if you know how to use social media, awesome. But there's also a lot of people that are really overwhelmed and also intimidated by social media, and that's totally cool as well. Social media, there's just so much going on. Sometimes I've just got to switch it off because it's it makes my head spin. So I think it's really important to recognize that that's totally okay, and sometimes you just need to bounce out of it to create space and clarity to move ahead. But it's really important that you are using it to your ability. It's a free resource that allows you to grow brand awareness and build trust, so do use it, but use the platforms that are suited for you and your audience. Otherwise, it's not really good use of your time. So for me, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and I spend the majority of my time on Instagram because that works best for my business and my audience. And, using that platform to connect, educate, and humanize your brand. And also, keeping up the frequency is super important as well, because that is really what helps build that connection. So if that all just seems way too much for you, and you actually have got a product, so you don't necessarily have to do it yourself, this is something that you can outsource. Again, there's lots of different ways we can do that for you through Sticky Studio, or you can create the content and schedule it so that you do not have to be on there so often. But do remember that social media is not just about posting. You absolutely have to be engaging with your audience. So important. Even if that's just 15 minutes a day, you have to do that. It's just part of the gig. So, being active online, it's, that's, if you want an online presence, you've got to be active online. And I think one thing that a lot of people do is put all their eggs in one basket. So, a lot of people will just spend time on Instagram, losing my voice, or just spend time on one platform. You want to be on social media, but you need to be on, your website. You might also want to do a podcast. You might want to be doing YouTubing. Spread your eggs. It will make all the difference. Now, networking is super important. I've got to say, networking has definitely helped my business over the years. So whether that's, you looking for events to attend, which is pretty, silly idea in this COVID world at the moment. Bring back the events, my God. Go to events if you can, if they're around, if they're on. The events that you go to, make sure that it's, like the right event for you. So, otherwise that can be a waste of your time. If you can't find any events, create them yourself. And even if that has to be an online event in this world, so be it. So I created a networking stream of events probably, 2.5 years into my business, and ran them solidly around Australia for many years. And that is how I grew my network. It was pivotal in growing and connecting, and it really was amazing. So just have a think about how you can network. And even if you've already got a really great network already, you always need to be strengthening it and continually making new contacts and building a bigger network, because it really helps when you've got questions, if you want to create a mastermind, or even, bringing in customers and clients and referrals. So influencer marketing is another big one. That it really is a whole separate podcast, because it's a bit of a minefield, and it really depends on how you approach it, depending on your brand. But as a top line, overview, influencer marketing, you can either do a contra arrangement with an influencer, or you can do a paid arrangement with an influencer. In both scenarios, it's really important that the influencer and you have had a discussion on the output. So that means like how many posts and or stories are required in what time span from receiving the product or the service. That's really important. And also, like, if an influencer then comes back to you, experiences the product or the service and says, this isn't what I expected, or the product's not quite right, take that as consumer feedback, because that can also be invaluable as well. As you would know, that the number of followers the influencer has does not mean the number of sales or big sales. Quite often influencer marketing starts off with brand awareness, and then, the more and more consumers start to see this brand out there, then the trust and credibility grows, and then they're more likely to make a sale. So it is a bit of a long strategy, and it's better to do it in drip feeding rather than just doing a massive carpet bomb influencer marketing campaign and there's nothing after that. I think also dipping your toe in the water to start off with is good, because then you can get a gauge on what has and hasn't worked and you can adjust accordingly. So that's all really important. Now, with all these points that I've just been through, you don't need to do them all at once. You will just slowly build over time, and some of these points might not even be relevant for you. But from my point of view, with my businesses, I have taken a really strong content marketing strategy for both businesses to create a solid online presence and findability online. And it has absolutely paid off, and none of it's cost me any money. So it really has just been hard work and frequency and just doing it consistently as well. Now, it's also really important that you remember to look at your insights regularly, because that's going to give you an insight into what is and isn't working. And so it might be that you decide every Friday that you look at your insights, and that can even be like in the back end of your website, like the analytics that shows is incredible. You might find that one blog article is bringing in the majority of your traffic. You might find that another website is bringing in a lot of traffic, and then you can tailor your topics and your marketing so much more effectively, and you'll get to a point where you actually can do less and get more in return, which is what we all want. Yay. So, it can seem really overwhelming, but it's not. Like I always say to my clients, you need to approach business and marketing and growth in a way that you feel comfortable with in the time that you have. And then as you get it and as things become easier, we just build, and it's like exercise. You start off gradually and then you build up. Before you know it, you're doing all these amazing things that you didn't think you could do before. So I think, knowing how to do these elements that I've just been through is actually empowering. So you don't have to be great at them, but I think knowing how to do this is empowering, because then if you want to outsource, if they're doing a good job. I think that's really important, really, really important. So, that is it. I could talk forever, but I'm not going to. I don't know if you've heard, I've literally had like 1 trillion emails coming through as I'm speaking, and I can just see I've got a website to review, which is excellent, because this website needs to go live. So that's great. I'm going to do that now. So I hope you are all really well and coping okay with lockdown. Make sure you get outside and exercise. It's so good for the body and the mind. It really is. I just could not live without fresh air and exercise. And here's hoping that we're all back to normal extremely, extremely quickly. So if you've got any questions, let me know. As you know, you can always find me at relauncher.com.au and stickystudio.com.au, and online, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram. I'm everywhere, so you can find me then. Have a great afternoon and day or night whenever you're listening to this, and I will see you soon.